House Oversight Committee Chair Darrell Issa is slamming President Obama. According to a new Oversight Committee report, the president has ignored thousands and thousands of recommendations from his administration's own watchdogs. Recommendations that would save federal agencies $67 billion a year. That would cover almost 80% of the sequestration cuts, or as we say, slowed growth. Congressman Issa joins us. Nice to see you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me on, Greta, and thanks for covering this growing problem.
Growing. I'll say it's growing. It's like it's exploding.
Well, it's growing, but put it in perspective. About $26 billion under Bush at a similar time that Chairman Waxman did. This is not the only administration not to listen to their IGs and to lose opportunities to save vast amounts of money, but it's growing.
All right, let's explain to the viewers that IGs, inspector generals, then they do individual analysis of their departments, right? They
are criminal investigators. They primarily look at waste, fraud from a criminal standpoint, but of course along the way they find lots of money, and that's really what they do. There's about 12,000 men and women, about a $2 billion budget throughout all of government, but they are the nonpartisans that are working for you within government.
They've identified $67 billion, at least pretty easily, of waste.
These are the ones that have not been responded to. The fact is, some of them go back 3-4 years. Over 1,000 days was a big chunk of the 1,700 different ones. And it's really a crying shame. One of the testimonies we had...
Shame. It's worse than that. Well, I mean, you know what, the thing is, like, you know, it's so outrageous. Night after night after night, we listen. $67 billion. And we're fighting over $82 billion in the sequestration. If anyone made any effort to get the $67 billion, you know, we wouldn't be fighting over 82, whatever the difference is, 15 billion.
Well, exactly. And if you took a third of this and said we're going to get rid of that, what starts to happen, of course, is everything that you really treasure that somebody's telling you will be cut wouldn't have to be cut. The government still has to go on a diet, but this $67 billion is known. When we look at it, our other IGs, inspector generals, and their reports, we're looking at about 7% of the budget that falls in this category, which means there's about another $210 billion per year of this kind of waste.
All right, give me an idea of what is some waste that is not being attended to by the Obama administration that they have notice of.
Well, probably one of them that would hit home is Pell Grants and in fact student loans. There's a number of known con games going on, and it kind of goes like this. You're on some sort of what we used to think of correspondence, but now it's a distance learning. And they're taking advantage of the law where you can put all this money in tuition and kick back, if you will, a huge portion of it for living expenses, meaning you take a distance learning course, but they start paying for your housing. On top of that, there are organizations that realize that they can put a whole bunch of people for a few terms into this distant learning and take half of thousands of dollars, and it ends up being hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. These organizations that are doing this is not the university, but in fact organizations taking advantage of it, have been recognized, and there's been no action to create the ability to catch them and stop them early. And this is the kind of thing that gives, you know, distance education or Pell Grants a bad reputation.
And it hurts the students who really do need these loans and should get them legitimately. All right, let me turn to you got a letter. You received a letter from Sheriff Paul Bebu, who's our next guest. He wants you to investigate he wants to investigate ICE releasing those who they were holding. Your thought? Are you going to do that?
We will. Now, when I say we, I serve on Judiciary. They've already announced they're going to do it. Homeland Security has announced. Our investigators are going to work with them. That's the nature of my committee. We're the principal investigation and oversight committee. But when we have committees, and particularly these two that deal with the sub-issues and overseeing justice and overseeing Homeland Security, we're going to work with them, and they're going to hold most of the hearings.
Can I tell you how you can get this answer for this? Is you call up John Morton of ICE, who is a very decent guy. You say, you know, come up here and tell us why you released him. And he says, I don't want to. You didn't slap a subpoena on him, and then he shows up, and you can have the answer in 24 hours. Or you can exchange letters back and forth and have all sorts of hearings and spend days and weeks and never get the answer. That's your choice.
Greta, as you know, we'll go all the way through contempt to get discovery, information, and witnesses.
But you can get this tomorrow. I bet you could get this information tomorrow.
I believe we'll have it within 30 days.
Right.
And Greta, understand, this is important. but it's yet another example of where the president is trying to use sequestration as a political tool, and this is yet another use of that tool. We know
Look,
that.
You know, all I know is that this is a problem, and we don't have the answers. And if everyone's going to try to go out of his way to make it so complicated an answer to a simple question.
I don't expect it to be complicated. I expect what I told you to be the result. The question is, why is someone using public safety at risk to support a political agenda that somehow they didn't have the money?
Always nice to see you, sir.
Thank you, Greta.